Hi there, Timothy Linsdau, video producer and a Christian. Today I'm going to put on my history cap. Having Thanksgiving's just passed by and you've been so busy, it's time to take a little vacation for me and probably a little vacation for you to enjoy this wonderful holiday of Thanksgiving. But there's some amazing history to this whole experience. Like and comment on my videos, subscribe to my channel. That'd be terrific if you would. Thank you. Thanksgiving. What's this about? Where's it at? What happened? It's really all about the 1620 voyage of the Pilgrims, where its foundation began. Now, these people were separating themselves from what they didn't like about the religious order of Europe and Britain, and that's a whole nother story. But they gathered together, a group of them, and to put together a voyage to the New World, so to speak, which would be America as we know it, and establish themselves there in some kind of new order or religion. Or they still functioned under the King of England, which had, in a sense, allowed them to make this journey. Everything from the beginning to the end was practically a disaster. There were two ships that were going to sail, the Speedwell, I believe it was called, and the Mayflower. And the Speedwell failed early, had to return to port. It was leaking so bad. So they had to pack everything and everybody onto the Mayflower. Well, it was, overloaded, uncomfortable as heck, I'm sure, and miserable. And instead of departing, say, in the spring or early summer, they ended up departing in the fall or towards the fall, which is, we know what East Coast, Northeast Coast is like in America. I mean, it's snowy and cold and winter. Well, anyway, so they end up landing in somewhere around Cape Cod because they intended on sailing further south, which might have been a milder winter, but there you are. Ended up in the wrong place. They spent the first winter on the Mayflower, which was perfect condition for the spread of disease and sickness, and consequently, almost half of them died. Most of the women. There were only 5 women that survived out of the group of about 100 people. So it left 50-some left by spring, just to give you an idea how difficult that must have been. It's just what these people went through to try to have a new life. I think one of the more fascinating things that occurred during this time had to do with the 2 Indians, Samoset and Squanto. Squanto is most commonly known that I know of. Came to greet the Pilgrims somewhere along in that first year. And what was fascinating, now the Pilgrims are out here this is wilderness. There's nothing that they can see, hardly, that would show anybody was here. No buildings, villages. They hadn't gone very far, looked anywhere. And here come these 2 strong, virile Indians, if you will, 2 warriors. I think they may have come at different times, but anyway. And they come out of the wilderness to the Pilgrims, and they're speaking perfect English. And they're asking for beer. That I like even more. And the reason for that is earlier English fishermen along the coast would also fish for slaves, if you will. They would try to capture Indians as slaves. What a fine group of people that was. But anyway, as the story goes, Squanto was captured, taken back as a slave, survived that, actually got back to his people, and then was captured a second time and went through the process in Spain, but through that whole changing of historical events, gets his way back to England and catches a ride again back to America to try to see his people who had by that time perished from disease. So actually, Squanto ended up spending the rest of his time with the Pilgrims as he passed away in 1622, not long after he had met the Pilgrims. I think of that scene of the Pilgrims bedraggled, half starved to death, and half of them dead. And here comes this fine-looking Indian out of the wilderness who probably was well-fed and well taken care of in their village, and knowing the land and how to grow things and hunt game, and were well established. So it kind of reminds me of like a Star Trek episode. I mean, they go to this alien place they know nothing about. It's nothing but tragedy and problem. And here comes this person along, speaking perfectly in their language, and helping them get established and get back on their feet. And it's that part of history is a wonderful moment between the Europeans coming to America with the Indians. There was just like a moment there where everything was great history. From there, it's not so good in many ways. But it must have been fascinating. And apparently, from what I understand, Squanto did become converted to their religion, which is Christianity, and remained that till he passed away. So his story is just as amazing, really, as the Pilgrim story, and loaded with tragedy and some good times. But Thanksgiving came out of that experience because by the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims were slowly getting their act together with the help of the Indians and learning how to grow food and hunt. The Pilgrims did have firearms available to them. But the first group, a large group of Indians that showed up in the fall, that the Pilgrims wanted to celebrate this Thanksgiving for at least surviving the next year and having food on the table. And this group of Indians apparently came along with fresh killed and dressed deer, so that there was a group of somewhere around 80 Indians. So it was 100 to 130 people that gathered for this first Thanksgiving together in a time of peace. They all got along, cooked together, whatever it took to make this celebration. In that history, it's there's some good there of them gathering together in peace and Thanksgiving, and knowing these Pilgrims, I'm sure they were definitely sharing their faith with the Indians, and the Indians, from what I understand, had their own religions pretty well established. But however that went, there's so very little written history of those times that's accurate. But anyway, and it didn't continue just like established like it is now, and they just kept doing it every year. But there was just that particular time in history in 1621 that began this practice of giving thanks for what you have. It was George Washington in 1789, in his first year as president, that established Thanksgiving as a holiday, and really a religious holiday, and giving thanks to God. That's specific in his proclamation of Thanksgiving. And then other presidents either forgotten it or whatever they did with it. They didn't establish it until Lincoln. And then along come Lincoln and the horrors of the Civil War, and decided that the nation needed some kind of opportunity to give thanks for what they did have that was good at the time, trying to end that war, which took some time more and was a horrible thing. Something like 750,000 Americans died in that war, the worst casualties we've ever had in any war. But anyway, Lincoln's the one who really established it as a federal holiday, as a particular time, the fourth Thursday in November, to celebrate. Of course, it originally comes from celebrating the harvest and being thankful for what you have, because you really don't have much once you get the seeds planted and the livestock taken care of. That it's nature from then on as to whether you're going to get anything out of it or not. So, but there's a little bit of history of the Thanksgiving and what happened. Some amazing things that came together in 1620 and 21 that happened in the very beginning, and what occurred later on. It's just incredible history, really. Well, I hope you enjoyed the day and the weekend. It was a wonderful time at our house, and it was really great. So like and comment on my videos, subscribe to my channel. That'd be terrific. And Now get out there and after a wonderful weekend and make it a great day.